So today we're going to talk about the vital activities, right? So I named the class 10 ways to get leveraged, right? So, and we're going to go through the materials and talk about that. And I want to get into what are the actual vital activities that we do every day. And, we've got a couple of people from the mortgage company. These things I think apply to your world too, to some, in a manipulated way. They could still apply to what you guys are doing in that part of the world. So let me go ahead and get you the class materials. Got this loaded up here. So how is your guys' start to the year while I'm getting this over to you?
Off to a good start.
Off to a good start?
Activity's picking up.
Good.
It is. It's picking up. There's more people at each house now, by the way.
Yeah, I saw somebody posted. So I think somebody posted about, and I think it was in Colorado, there was like a line out the door of people waiting to get into a property. So
Malky said 71 people came to their open house this weekend.
Wow, that's crazy.
71. He said they couldn't even keep track of them. It's like at some point it was just total chaos.
Yeah, no kidding. Let's see. I need an email from Mario and Chris. Or Scott. I don't know why yours isn't coming up again.
Just do it in the chat.
Yeah, just pop it in the chat for me. 71 people at an open house. That's crazy. So what does that tell us? We need to get back to doing open houses.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So my guys, they're tired of hearing it, but it's like, that's where you got to be. You got to be where the buyers are.
Yeah, absolutely. So I just bought some new signs. I plan on getting some open houses going myself. So it was the one way whenever I was on Nate's team as a buyer's agent, if I had a lull in my business, it was the one way that I got businesses just to go sit in open house. It worked every time, right? So even if it wasn't a lead from the open house, it just was my energy was different and I was out hunting for business, and so all of a sudden the phone started ringing. So without fail, every time I did an open house in a lull, I would always pick up some business. So all right, let's do a share screen here and jump in. Yeah, and I've had all kinds of leads on this property too. I wish it was a higher price point, but it's all good. All right, so current slide. Okay, so I actually start this with, if you guys have ever read The Greatest Salesman in the World, if you have not, this is a fantastic read. Take you about 2 hours to read the whole thing, but the way it's written is there's 10 scrolls, and so you would study each scroll every day for 30 days. So it would take you 10 months to get through the whole book. And so the goal is to read it 3 times. When I've studied it, I always kind of sucked at the midday one. I was good about reading it in the morning, at night. And even if you just read it in the morning, I mean, I'm hard pressed just to open a page in this book and find something that is inspiring wherever it is in the book. So I love this for today's class. Is the very first scroll is, today I will begin a new life. In truth, the only difference between those who have failed and those who have succeeded lies in the difference of their habits. Good habits are the key to all success. Bad habits are the unlocked door to failure. Thus, the first law I will obey, which precedeth all others, I will form good habits and become their slave. And so we think about our day-to-day things, and there's certain things that all of us do every day, right? Just a part of our routine. I take vitamins every day, right? That's my thing I'm committed to, is every day I take those. And if I don't do it, I feel off, right? I feel like something's amiss in my day. Those of us that are in the gas program, I have my journal sitting right here. So getting in the habit of having every day, and just even writing down some gratitudes, right? And my affirmations changes my vibe for the day, right? Changes my attitude before I jump on Zoom with you guys to just plant the seeds in there in my mind. And so having this class is really coming down to habits and understanding the difference between what is a vital activity and what is minutia. Right? We can all get caught up. I just watched, if you guys didn't watch the 9-minute clip that Nate posted on the inner circle of the late great, one of the most amazing human beings ever to walk the planet in our time, Howard Brinton, he was doing a little 9-minute montage of him in different points speaking. And he talks about, hiring an assistant. Like agents that have scale, they realize that one of the best things they could have done early on was hire sooner. Right? Because we get caught up in the minutia, we get caught up in the $15 an hour details that could be outsourced. And I get it, not everyone has the budget to do that. That's fine. But we have transaction coordinators, right inside the office. That's a lot of those $15 an hour activities that you can just outsource right now. You don't have to go hire. They've got experience. They are there. And I know for those of us that are new, we're like, well, I want to learn the process. You're still going to learn it. They're not going to take it away from you. Okay. They're still going to be a part of it. Right. So let's go ahead and jump in. So every day in Africa, a gazelle wakes up, and the gazelle knows that it must be faster than the fastest lion or it will be killed and eaten. And gazelles have one advantage over the lion. Lion can run really, really fast, but in a short distance. Gazelle has agility, right? They can outmaneuver the lion and they can last longer. So they have a higher energy, not as fast, but they can outmaneuver the lion, right? And so the lion, though, he knows that if he doesn't outrun the slowest gazelle, he'll starve. And I think the lion, he's the badass, right? He is the badass of all of the jungle. What's on my bucket list is to do an African safari and to hit the 7 big animals to see, and he's one of them, right? And so when we think about the agile or the gazelle is very agile, right? And so some parts of our business we need to have that, right, and be stealthy and be able to outmaneuver the competition. But then we also got to be the badass lion, right? And so which are you going to be? Every day I think depending on the day we need to be a little bit of both, right? And so either way we got to get up, we got to hit the ground running every day. So another quote here that's kind of, I think, a little stingy. If you really read this, that people assume everyone wants to reach their potential and be the best they can be. I've concluded that most only want to be average and do just enough to get by. And if you know who Nick Saban is, he's the head football coach for the University of Alabama, and they have been how many times winners? I'm not a huge college football watcher, but I know that Nick Saban's a badass, right? And so when we think about this, that just being average, and I think for most salespeople, that rubs you wrong because you're not average, right? Entrepreneurs are not average, right? An average person clocks in every day 8 to 5, right? And just goes through their day being a meat bag that's walking around, right? A meat suit. And so when we think about reaching our potential, I had heard on a podcast a couple years ago that most people leave 75% of their potential on the table. Yikes, right? That's a lot of potential, Scott, that we're wasting. And so thinking about that every day, and what we're going to talk about today is, are you getting the most out of every single day, right? Are you focusing on the activities that we know are going to drive revenue? Okay. So a couple questions to ask yourself is, so are you getting the most out of the hours that you're working? I would say most of us are not. We get distracted. These things are a distraction, right? You can see my cell phone. They're a distraction, right? The things ping, they go off, like, oh my God, someone commented on my Facebook post, right? So we get distracted by that. Or, if you work from home, you get distracted by your animals or laundry that needs to be done, or I'm just going to take a few minutes and wipe down the kitchen. Those are all things that get in the way of us being dollar productive. And our families love them, but have you ever had them say, well, you don't have a real job. You're available during the day. You can do this errand, right? And so that simply isn't true. And we have to think about those of us in the gas program, and if you were really being honest and planting the seeds over those 2 months that we were doing it, that's why some of you are seeing some busyness, right? Because everything we do today affects our business 30 to 60 days from now. So you want to blow off prospecting today, that's fine. You can do that. But when you don't have any business in 60 days, you got to ask yourself, was blowing that off worth it? Okay. And then, so are you consistently operating at your highest and best use? And so I think a lot of agents don't even know what highest and best use is. And spoiler alert, it's prospecting, right? It's getting face-to-face with enough people. And we talked about this yesterday. My gas pod has continued to meet. And we talked about, what are your goals? Like, well, how many appointments do you need to go on? I did the math. If I want to list the number of houses I want to list and the buyers I want to work, I got to get face-to-face with 4 appointments, 2 listings and 2 buyers every single month. And Mario, that's not a lot. You think about that, there's 30 to 31 days in the month, only four people. It's really not that much, right? And so if you want to do more than that, challenge yourself to figure out what that math is, right? And figuring out how many people, and that's really, we used to always talk about, like, what's your benchmark? Like, how many houses do you need to sell? And that's great to know that number, but then take it a step further, and how many appointments does that equal? Right? And so Tina, in your world, if your LOs were getting face to face with enough either people refinancing or even agents, they're going to hit their goals, right? And so it really comes down to, this is not rocket science. It comes down to the basics that we execute at a high consistency. Okay, so the highest best use of your time is prospecting and converting. And so I just answered that for you. So regardless of the numbers of hours dedicated, the goal is the same. Okay. And so let me get some of my materials here. So getting clear. So potential. right? So this is on page 5 of your materials. Potential, having or showing the capacity to become. Capacity is the ability to receive and contain, right? So we think about a jar, it has so much capacity. And then that is basically the limited amount of time that you have or the time that you invest, okay, is your capacity. And so we think of it this way, that time is limited. So we have to get the most out of each hour. So whether that's 1 hour or 24 hours, we need to maximize the output. And I'm going to show you another slide that drives this home even more about what that equals in dollars. So if you guys could Google this, if you go look on YouTube, find the what is it called? The sand or glass or jar, something along those lines. There's a video out there. It's kind of boring, but basically the instructor has a bowl and he says, if I put all these rocks in there, will it be full? Right? If I put the sand in here, will it be full? When I put the water in there, will it be full? And it boils down to understanding what are the big rocks. So if you put the rocks in first, then you could put the pebbles, then you could put the sand, then you could put the water. If you put the water in first, there's not going to be room for anything else. And so water is minutia, right? And the things that we don't necessarily need to do. Big rocks are money-making activities. Big rocks are important things like our family, our physical health, our religion, whatever that is, right? And so the big rocks are those things. And you guys, we get very one-dimensional in this industry, and it's easy to do. It's easy to have something suck the life out of you. My whole afternoon got sucked up with this transaction I'm dealing with. And it's like, it's hard to outsource that when I'm the one who needs to fix it. Right. And so, being mindful of the time that those things take. And then when we're saying yes to something, we're saying no to something else. And usually it's the people we care about. Right. So making sure that when you're at work and you're laser focused, and when you're not, you're present with your family. Okay. So we need to be willing to dedicate the time to get the best possible return and being effective and efficient. Okay. So I love this next slide because wait, no, it's the slide after, sorry. So we only have 24 hours in the day, right? So we talk about inefficient behavior, right? It takes more time. My mom used to say that if you do something half-assed, it actually takes you more time because now you can go back and fix it. So just do it right the first time, right? And so most agents, I would say, waste 40% of their day, especially if you go to the office, because then you get caught up in chit chats, and those conversations are great, but it is a distraction, right? So some of us would be better off just to be very deliberate, work 6 hours and then be done. If you were consistently prospecting and doing 1 to 3 hours every day and setting appointments, you could work 6 hours and go home. Nate's Pinnacle again this year, and he's working Monday through Thursday. Trying to golf every Friday. Now, will he go on an occasional appointment on the weekend? Absolutely, right? But he's very intentional about how he spends his time. And that was hard for him to wrap his brain around that, because he was so used to being reactive and so used to being available at everyone's beck and call and thinking that was the only way to make money. And instead, now changing it and being the one in control of his time, he's made more money, right? And taken more time off and been more present with his family, right? And played more golf. All right, so here's the slide I like. So this slide shows us that 1 hour wasted over a period of time of 10 years could equal $2.4 million. So think about that for a second. So let's break it down. So we got 5 days a week, so 48 weeks in the year. That's 240 hours in the year if we wasted just one. And had we been making calls, let's say we could make 30 dials in an hour, that's an additional 7,200 conversation or dials. Then we would break it down into conversations, 1,080. Then if we could just get 10% of that, that's an additional 108 listing appointments, 72 additional listings taken. And then if we convert that, it's an additional 48 transactions. That again, and these numbers are low, right? Because if we were to take our average sales prices today, our average GCI is more than $5,000. So these numbers are low for us. 2.4 million. I don't know about you, but I'd like to have that in my savings account or in my retirement account. And so that's just 1 hour, the devastating effects of 1 hour being wasted. Okay. So time, I think I shared with you guys, it's coming up on the 6-year anniversary in February, my father-in-law passed away. And on his deathbed, the one thing he said was, I wish I had more time. And then he lived a really, really, really full life. Like he did things that some of us were like, wow. So things like working on the Alaskan pipeline, that's a once in a lifetime type thing. Right. And so he got to live a very full life. And so time is really the only limited commodity that we have. Okay. So escaping the overwhelming feeling and becoming more productive is the result of moving from being spontaneous and reactive to being intentional and proactive. Okay. And I live in the real world. I know you're going to have transactions that are just, they're going to suck the life out of you, and that's okay. But if all of us could move towards even being 50% more efficient, 75% more efficient, more intentional, you're going to see a difference in your life and your business. Okay. So page 8, full-time realtors fall into one of four categories. Typical salespeople, right? They know what they know, just going to stay where they are. And that's not going to work in this market, by the way, in our changing market, which it's already changed. We can stop saying it's changing because it's already changed, right? We're here, which changed. And so thriving, so we have the thriving salesperson, we have a typical entrepreneur, okay, and then we have a thriving entrepreneur, which is where we want all of you to be. We want you to be thinking about this as a business, and is it a sellable good down the road, right? And so being an entrepreneur means that we look for opportunities, we leverage other people, we look for talent, we look for ways to grow and develop, right? We're not just staying in the space of, well, I know what I know, I'm comfortable here, right? And so staying comfortable, the wait and see, as Burl would say, is the enemy of success. I hear that all the time from people. I'm just going to wait and see. Well, how's that going to work out in 6 months if the interest rates come back down and we have another feeding frenzy? You're going to be happy that you waited to see, right? Well, we don't have a crystal ball. Okay. So we have to constantly be educating people about that. And then the next thing is you have to establish your approach. So we want to move out of the comfort zone, right? We want to be intentional and proactive, and then decide if being a salesperson, is this going to be a job, or are we going to look at it as business? Okay. So obviously being a typical entrepreneur is where we want you to be. All right. So success is a journey, not a destination. So there's 3 and 1/3 components, and we start at the bottom of this. This is page 9. We start at the bottom with this, and that we want to start out with commitments. Are you committed, right? Is it a hell yes, I'm going to do this, I'm all in? And then building our confidence. You build your confidence by practicing scripts and dialogues, coming to masterminds, coming to classes like this, getting some designations, and then being consistent with that, right? Consistently doing the right activities. This is not rocket science, right? It's not. Bottom line is, if you get face to face with enough people, and I don't care if they're not ready, right? That doesn't matter. Buy them a cup of coffee. You're planting the seeds. If you would have told me last March that I'd be moving back to the northern Arizona, I would have laughed at you, right? And so people make decisions like that. Life happens like that, okay? So then we have our beliefs, right? What are our core beliefs? We've talked a lot about that in momentum, having those strong beliefs, and then that creates endurance, right? Think about the gazelle. She's got endurance, right? And she's willing to play the long game because it's her life, right? It's a matter of life or death. And then we have effectiveness and being efficient. And so what are we doing? Is it effective? Is it efficient? Okay, doing the same thing over and over again and asking for different results, definition of insanity. So it's got to be effective, right? And then that comes down to mastery. So we really want to master our systems. And I feel like we could go back to the basics. And can you honestly say that if you were going to sit down with a buyer in a buyer consultation, that you've mastered that presentation? Same thing with your listing presentation. Have you mastered it? Have you mastered being a good pricing strategist? Right? One of our agents is thinking about buying a property up here, and I'm newer to selling up in this area. So I was super excited because he asked me to run comps for him. And I was like, yeah, I get to practice, right? I get to look at this and run comps for a property for someone just to get, practice my skill set. Right. And so it was really fun to do that in a different market, right? Different from Phoenix. And so I feel like I could run comps on a house in Phoenix all day, completely different when you're talking about a property in the woods with acreage, right? And so mastering that, really practicing it and studying it. I would encourage you to run comps on a house in your neighborhood and just see how good you are, right? See how good you are when it comes down to when that property goes under contract. Next thing is we got to have patience. I think that's really something that a lot of agents are struggling with right now, because we're so used to the robust market happening that people are like, oh my God, what's going on, right? The sky is falling. Just got to have some patience, right? Patience. So because our job is to help expose the property so that the right person sees it at the right time, right? So we got promotion, we got proficiency, we have developing other people. And even if you're a solo agent, you still have people on your team, as we talked about last week. You got your title company, your mortgage company, your inspectors, your home warranties, your insurance agent, your cleaning person, right? Your handyman. Those are all people that are part of your team, okay? And then lastly, the top part is leverage, right? So people who are successful have learned to leverage. And so you think about just like a laundry service, right? A laundry service that shows up, takes your laundry out, brings it back folded, washed it on hangers. That's a form of leverage. I personally hate laundry. It's the worst chore ever. My stuff stays in the basket and I pick through it and then it goes in the other basket when it's dirty, right? I feel like I'm winning if I get my laundry done on Sundays and it's put away. Like that is a huge, like, whoa, this is going to be a good week. Watch out because I got my shit together. I got my laundry put away, right? And so for me, that's a big deal. So having a laundry service, you could send it out, it comes back. That's leverage. Having a housekeeper is leverage, right? Getting food order services, that's leverage. And so when I talk about leverage, I want you guys to think beyond having a team, right? And think about those little things in your life that are going to free you up to make it rain and be present for the people you care about, right? All right, so page 10. Am I doing on time here? Okay. I might skip through some of this because I really want to get into the vital activities. So give me a second here just to see what I want to do. Yeah, I think, well, shoot, this is the 10 steps. Okay, we're going to hit this and I'm going to kind of buzz through some of this. I want to get to the meat of the other part of this. So page 10. So is your current production by design or coincidence? So we got to have an operational model, right? So our operational model, this is step 1. So I have it. I don't think I have it on here. Nope. You're just going to have to follow along with me on page 10. So step 1 is analyzing your operational model. So we want to make sure that we have the sources and the strategies to create the results that we need. Okay. Step 2 is to record everything. So for a week to 2 weeks, write everything down that you're doing for the day. And if you've ever been on a diet, that's what they tell you to do, right? Is track your calories, track your water, track your steps, all of that. And so write it all down. And I think what people find when they've done this exercise and they come back to me is they find that how much time they've really wasted. And then the fact that the reality that they don't realize how much time activities take. We all think we have a cape, and Mario, think you can go across the city in 15 minutes. Well, newsflash, it might take you 30. And so I think that's where a lot of people struggle is they don't really know how much time things take. Okay. So write it down. Third step is to distinguish between what is vital and what is non-vital, right? So vital, if you think about, someone's arm chopped off and their blood's rushing out, it's kind of a vital situation, right? Versus someone who just has a paper cut, not quite as vital, right? And so we think about those things that are must-dos that have to be done, money-making activities. And there are some things that we do in transactions that are non-money-making activity, and we're going to get into that. So we want to challenge those things. It's absolutely necessary. Can I create leverage by delegating this? And then step 4 is to create 2 progressive vital activities list. You're going to get those, and you're going to probably want to add to them. They're in the materials, but you might want to add to them as well. And then the next step is 5 is establishing a detailed step-by-step. So this is your operational procedure manual, right? Having a checklist. Anything you do in your business 3 or more times needs a process. And so we think about a buyer intake form, which if you don't have one, you're going to get one in the buyer conversion. I can also share the one that Nate and I created a long time ago. So I'm happy to share that. Send me an email if you want it. But that's a process, right? Having an intake form, we ask the right questions, right? Of the buyer coming in, we ask the questions, and now we have a process. We've McDonaldized the process of interviewing a buyer. Same thing when you go on a listing appointment, right? Having those listing questions. Those are things that are step-by-step processes. So for Tina and John, you guys could create videos, right? That say, this is the next step in your qualifying process, right? Congratulations, you're pre-qualified. So what does that look like moving forward? Okay. So having a procedure manual. Next step 6 is creating an organizational chart of all the desired positions. Again, if you're a sole agent, look at that chart. Who's your lender? Who's your title company, right? Who are the people that are in your business? If you're using a TC, you got to plug that person in as well. Step 7 is assigning duties to each position. And then step 8 is finding and attracting the talent. And again, we've got talent already in the office. Between Orlando could be a part of your business plan, right? Alex could be a part of your business plan because these are all people that, are available to help you with your business. Okay. So attracting that talent and then having the procedure manual to train, right? And have that expectation. We used to, and Tina, you probably remember this, we used to every week, we had the lender and the title company in our office meeting reviewing files. Right? They would go over the files. Where are we at in the process? We would talk about it. And then that was just a part of the process, right? But what were we doing? Well, we were keeping track of our transactions, but we were also developing those people in our business because we were the number 1 team in the state. So we had certain expectations of our vendors that we worked with because we were number 1. We were very demanding, right? And I can remember saying that. Do you know who I am? I work for the number one team, right? And so we had that expectation that if you wanted a seat at our table, you needed to be as badass as we were in the services that you provided. So really paying attention to that. How many of you are sitting down and going over your files every week? You know, with your TC or with your mortgage company or whoever, right? And then lastly, step 10 is holding the talent accountable. Talent demands that, right? The talent really wants to be accountable. If you think about your children, you know, we think that children don't want to schedule and that they just want to stay up and be on their own thing, but that really isn't true. It's been proven that kids need structure, right? They need a bedtime, they need set routine things and that help them stay accountable, helps them stay mentally in the game, right? And that they're not wild children running around. And so thinking about that with your business, holding your talent accountable, right? And talent will also want to be compensated. If you buy something at Walmart versus Nordstrom, right? Something that, you know, the quality is going to be a little bit different there. Not that shopping at Walmart's not bad. I buy plenty of things there, but it's a good demonstration of the quality you might get there versus something at Nordstrom's. Okay. All right. So the 5 tools of intent. So a thriving practice comes from knowing the answers to these 5 important questions. Okay. So before I do that, why do people succeed? What do you guys think? Why do people succeed?
Because I think they're driven, and I think you have to know your why, Sarah. I mean, we talked about this before, but if you don't know why you show up every day, then you need to sit down and just really dig into it deep and say, why am I here? Why am I doing this? That's kind of my opinion.
Yeah, and we're going to talk about that a little bit more for sure. Because and you guys, the why is hard. Like and I'll be transparent. I've struggled many times in my life. Like, what is my why? Because when I first started out, my why was to prove my mother wrong. Well, I did that, right? So did that. So what's next, right? And when you have that, and that all of a sudden that hole, it leaves a hole, right? Because you prove it. Well, what's next? And I'd like to say that your why, just focus on what your why is today. Right, Monica, you got a brand new grandbaby. Your why is different today than it was when you were raising your kids. And so, you know, think about just right now, over the next 11 months, what's your why? Why are you getting up every day? So that the answer I'm looking for, why people succeed, is because they intend to. They get up every day and they say, watch out, got my sassy pants on, I'm going to it, right? Let's go rock this. Okay. So because they intend to. And then, you know, looking at what we have here, the entrepreneur's mantra. So this reflects why you do what you do. And it's also the money that you want to make. Okay. It's unacceptable for my business to earn less than, and you fill in that dollar amount. We talked about last week, having the economic model, the operational model, and the organizational model. So this identifies what, how, and who will get things done. Today, we're going to talk about activities management, which defines when are these things going to get done. Okay. So a thriving practice comes from knowing why, what, how, who, and when. Okay. All right. Let's see. I am going to jump forward to the actual vital activities. I want to get to this. So page 16. There's some other good stuff in there too, so make sure you guys read through the materials. But page 16, so our 47 listing activities, our vital activities for listings. So pretty simple, right? Page 16, finding sellers, right? This is a great time to be working expireds. I don't know if you guys noticed our MLS numbers dipped. About 3,000 homes came off the market. And so those are properties out there. There's also a company whose name I will not say, but spent a lot of money this weekend advertising during the football games, whose advertisements are ridiculous. Y'all know who I'm talking about, right? And if you go look at that company, they have the largest expired and canceled listings of any real estate brokerage in the state. So is that an opportunity to capitalize on their Achilles heel? Absolutely it is. Okay. So expireds. I will be having an expired class, I believe, in February. It's a really cool class that is a different concept to teach on expireds. For sell by owners, you know, again, have a class on that too. We have the traditional and social networking. You have just sold notifications. And if you're going to do a farm, which we have a class about farming as well, and teaching you how to farm. So, but most important is you guys work in your top 50. I was talking to somebody yesterday that was a newer agent. So when I brought up the concept, oh yeah, I do that. But then as the conversation was unpacked, really wasn't doing it. And so it's not a one and done. Top 50 is every single day of your life, right? And the concept is 50 people, Mario, who know you, like you, trust you, and who are evangelical about you. They're not going to let anyone do business without you, right? And so they're going to refer you. They're going to do multiple transactions. They don't have to be a past client. but they are raving fans of yours. And so the concept is every day you love on that list of people every day, 1 hour a day. And the result that came of this was 86 referrals. Not about you, but that's a lot of referrals, probably more than I could handle. Okay, so love on the people who already know you, like you, and trust you. It's way better and way easier to do this business. And just because you have coffee with them today doesn't mean that you're not planting a seed, that you're either going to do business with them or they're going to refer you somebody. Okay, next up is lead gen. So these two are number 1 and 2 for a reason. We got a lead gen every single day. And then when I get the lead, now do I know what to say? That's when practicing your scripts and dialogues coming in and talking about, if it's seller, asking pre-listing questions. Okay, which you guys will get that in the conversion class. Asking the right questions. Then talking about pricing, right? Getting the pricing, running comps and being very thorough in that. Your job when you're pricing a property is to investigate why a home sold. Okay, and we have a whole class on that. Call to confirm the appointment. This is something that makes you professionally attractive. Is if it's someone that you've never met before, do a quick little video. Hey, Monica, I'm looking forward to meeting you. Just wanted to put a face with a name. See you tonight at 5, right? So call to confirm, and then prepare the listing agreement. This is something we probably have gotten a little away from just with digital stuff, but you can have your templates as Shannon showed us in the Sky Slopes. You can have your template there and ready to go. It used to be a way to convert, right? If I had all my listing paperwork filled out, I could slide that right in front of you, Scott. A listing appointment was a way to convert. Nowadays, could you have it all fired up on your laptop and ready to go? Sure, you could do something like that too. It's still a way to convert, just a little bit different, okay? And then get on the right channel. I don't care if that's playing the Rocky theme song or affirmations or, doing some push-ups. I don't care what it is. Get your mind in the right spot so that when you walk in that door, you are laser focused and your goal is to get that listing. I'm not leaving without this listing. If you walk in and your papers are disheveled, you're disheveled, you got in a fight with your spouse, you got a flat tire, whatever it is, it's all going to affect your mental game. So you got to clear that noise out and get really focused on what are you doing. And the goal is to get the appointments. Okay. Get them to sign with you. Arrive on time. I can't stress how important it is to be on time. If you are someone who struggles with that, you can give yourself a 10-minute buffer, right? Tell yourself you have to be there at 2:45 when it's really 3 o'clock. My ex-husband was chronically late by at least an hour. So towards the end of our relationship, I started telling him if we need to be somewhere at 3, I would tell him 2, because I was raised that if you're not somewhere early, you're late, right? And so it's really important. You demonstrate, well, you put out the message to someone if you struggle with being punctual that you can't manage your time, and how are you going to manage their time? Okay. So then having the listing conversations, what does that look like? We want to set the tone. We want to uncover their needs, help them prioritize those needs. And we'll go more into this too when we get into the conversion classes. You're going to get something. We're going to talk about pricing. We have the pricing information. I'm going to give you a ton of scripts in the conversion classes that go over all these and how to get people to agree to the price. And then there's something in those materials called the roles. So it's the role of the client and the role of you. I think that part of that class is the most brilliant part because it really spells out, it opens up such a great dialogue to be able to have with the seller. And then of course, agreeing on that, closing for the appointment, getting the listing agreement signed. Okay. So those are all part of our lead conversion. Next up is going to be our admin prep, right? And so what does that look like? This is 75% of your transaction is administration, right? It's non-dollar making activities, but they're important. So we want to talk about this, page 17, measuring the rooms, right? This was something we used to do a long time ago. You can buy a little gadget, you put them on the wall and it shoots a laser beam across the wall. So having those room measurements, and then have the seller have a clipboard, have them write that down because what are we doing? We do that. I'm engaging them in the process, which is another closing technique. Okay. Use every field in MLS as applicable. That is your biggest and baddest tool that you have for marketing. So it's important that you use it and that it's accurate. Okay. Professional photography. It's so cheap these days. It's worth it. I don't understand when I see top producing agents with a freaking cell phone with the toilet seat up in the bathroom. I don't understand that. Professional photography is so cheap these days. We use Kevin Cross with Arizona Imaging. We've been using him for 25 years. He's amazing. They do a great job and they're very affordable. I don't care who you use, just don't let it be your cell phone. Have a sign in a lockbox. Those are important, right? I've gotten so many sign calls off of this property that it's refreshing, right? It's really refreshing. And a lockbox makes it easy for people to show the home. So, and if your seller is adverse to that, you need to have a conversation. How are we going to work around that? Because agents will absolutely not show your listing if it's not easy to get in. Okay, which is unfortunate, but just the reality. Having a thank you letter, right? A template after you meet with them and you get the listing. What's next? Send that thank you note out. There's something very profoundly impactful sending a thank you note, and then having your file, right? If you're using the TC will take care of all of that. I know we're getting ready to change showing services, so I'm excited that it's not going to be showing time. Setting all that up though, and then make sure that you give the seller a copy of everything that they've signed. That's your responsibility to make sure they get a fully executed copy of everything. Okay, and then of course putting them in a database and having that drip set up. Loan payoff. I like to have that conversation in my pre-listing conversation. I want to know what they owe on the property and if they have more than one mortgage. Reason being, and it's not in the material, I'm bringing cost sheets with me to show them what their net is, because everybody wants to know that number. And I can talk about buyer concessions at that time, a home warranty, and then I will pick a range, top end to low end, and usually the middle is where I want them to list. So if I have 3 cost sheets, it's a beautiful thing when we walk through that and they go, well, Sarah, we think we should price it here. Great. So was I thinking that. And I have a cost sheet addressing it. And if I can talk about concessions then, and if I get an offer that doesn't have concessions, it's pretty cool because I get to put that money back in the seller's pocket. But I've had the conversation up front. I'm not going to freak them out when we get an offer that says, hey, they're asking for, 3% concession, because I've already talked about it. They're prepared for that. Okay. And definitely need to be talking about buy downs right now with sellers and having that conversation with them. Okay. All right, so marketing and exposure. So putting it in MLS, super critical, you guys. There is no other, like I said, it's the baddest tool that you have. It does get syndicated out, so you want to make sure that your information is accurate, because you won't get a chance to fix it if it's not correct on those syndicated sites. If you're going to do just listed postcards or phone calls, make sure that you're making calls to people that are not on a do not call list. There was an agent in our office. She would send 100 letters right around the listing. I think it was 100. They were just letters letting people know the house was listed. Okay. If you don't have the budget for that, you could certainly door knock, right? And take a flyer and say, hey, this house is for sale. Door knocking is definitely, there's a lot of meat to that as far as getting to meet the neighbors. And then if you're doing let's say you were doing a coming soon, an open house, now it's under contract, now it's closed. So you really have 4 opportunities to door knock. And we only advocate 40 homes, right? 10 on either side of the house, 20 across the street. So we're not talking about door knocking on hundreds of doors, just those, right? But if you showed up, Scott, 4 times, and statistically speaking, when a home goes on the market, within 30 days, 2 to 3 more homes might be listed. So, well, 2, and then within 90 days, three homes. And I witnessed that on the house that I have in Surprise. It was actually 6 properties, because there were 4 that sold and 2 that were rentals. 1 was including mine. So all in about a 4-month period. So it was really kind of cool to see it happen, because I'm like, hey, that statistic's accurate. So if you door knock and you show up 4 times and that person's in that window, do you think you got a good chance at least getting an interview? Yeah, I think so. Right. And then so door knocking, calling the neighbors, you're just listed, send the stuff out, right? Put it on your social media, blast it out to your databases. You guys get within Mac Center, you get a link that has a website, a postcard, a flyer, something you push out to YouTube. So you've got all those tools that come right to your inbox. Okay. And then we're going to talk about, I think on February 23rd, we're going to talk about marketing. And I just want it to be a mastermind. I want everyone to come with their ideas and just have a collaborative share. Like, what are you doing, Monica, to market your listings? Okay. So talking about megaphone, talking about Facebook ads, all of that. So I want everyone to leave from that with just an arsenal of ways that you can market your listings. Okay. So, and it's not going to be one person presenting. I want everybody to collaborate. Okay. And then having feedback, right? Feedback is super important that you give to your sellers. And when you're giving feedback, make sure you give tangible feedback. And what do I mean by that? Like, if it smells, like, tell them it smells. If your buyer's objection was the popcorn ceiling, tell them that, because a seller can remove popcorn ceiling. That's an easy fix, pain in the butt, but it's an easy fix. It's cost effective. They don't like the carpet, then give that feedback, right? Give something that seller can take action on. And that's one thing I don't love about our feedback, is it's very boxy and there's not a lot of space for those types of comments. If you think it's overpriced, tell them by how much. Okay. And then preparing weekly updates. You guys can go in MLS. If you're on the one-liner, you can click, there's a little drop-down menu for your listing. You could go to the activity on there, and then you can go send that to your seller that shows them how many times it was viewed. Was it saved in a portal? Was it rejected? All of that. That's really great content for them to have. And one of my personal, I don't know if it's a core value or what, I don't know what it is, but I want to be able to call my sellers first. If my client calls me first, I have failed them. And so I want to be able to give them those updates and call them before they are calling me. And so that's just a personal thing that I've committed to. And having had the experience selling a property where the listing agents, I was not in control of who listed the property. Never once in 30 days did they call us with feedback or any kind of strategy. I was calling them every Friday. They got annoyed with me, but we needed the property had to sell, like we didn't have a choice. And so, but never once. And so that really affirmed for me that my goal and beating my seller to call me is important. It gives that customer service, right? And when you have your house up for sale, you feel very vulnerable. You feel very exposed, right? You're nervous. You feel like you're on a blind date, right? Every time your home is sold or every time it's shown, right? It's a blind date. And so it's important that we manage those expectations, that we keep, even if you don't have anything, Scott, to share with them, I don't have any updates for you. I just want to check in. How are you feeling? Right? Because there's a lot of emotions involved in that. And there's companies out there that prey on that. They have commercials that are going right into the the living room of your people, right? And it's right there telling them how awful it is to sell a home. Okay. And so we have to be louder, I guess, than those commercials. Okay. Then presenting and negotiating, this is my favorite part. We want to solicit multiple offers if we can, making sure that we are updating the MLS status if you've got multiple offers or when you go under contract. And again, you got to deliver that signed contract. It's your responsibility. And then negotiating any repairs, which again, contract change. So we actually get to do that. And then any repair invoices or notices that those clients need to have. Lastly, on listing vital activities are the appointment first. This is on page 18. Scheduling the closing, we typically rely on our title company to do that. Communicating throughout the whole process, right? With all parties. That's the worst when someone on the transaction goes radio silent, right? Because you know that something's wrong, especially if it's the lender that goes radio silent. Hint, hint, Tina and John. So then reviewing the title policy, the title commitment. Again, we rely so much on our people to do that, but it's absolutely your job to make sure you read those reports. Okay. If you don't know what you're reading, go make an appointment. Our lovely Jody will sit down and go over it with you. Tina, do you have something you want to add?
Oh, I just was going to say that would never happen here. We would never go silent. We
Good.
might talk too much.
Well, you know what I mean. So, and then reviewing the closing statement. This is really important if you've negotiated any concessions on whether that's a buyer or the seller, as you make sure it's accurate. I had a deal one time where title dropped the ball ordering the HOA. So they tried to charge my client a rush fee. And had I not reviewed the settlement statement, my clients wouldn't have known any different, but I was able to push back and say, no, you're not charging that. I had proof that I sent you the contract on this day. So you just got to make sure. And sometimes typos happen, right? We're human. An extra zero can get added or deleted. So you got to just make sure all those numbers line up. And then attending the closing. I will tell you, I haven't attended a lot of them. I did in the beginning just so I could really understand the process, but then I just really relied on my title company. I have a different opinion of that today, just having had many agents come through this class and tell me that that's the last opportunity they have to truly represent their clients. And if you've ever been in a situation where you need a lawyer, something very comforting knowing that that person standing next to you is there for you. And so even if you just sit there and look pretty, right, it's okay, because if something comes up and you're there to comfort them, especially a first-time home buyer, I think those are the people that need extra handholding. Plus, most title companies have fun little keys or things that you can do. Opportunity for social media, right? Take a picture. Now you've got stuff you can push out on social media. Okay. Lastly is post-closing. So having a survey, sending out the survey. We could do that through asking for reviews, your Google My Business or Facebook reviews. I wouldn't use Zillow, just my personal thing, but asking for feedback. We need feedback, because if someone goes away and they're upset and we don't have a chance to fix that, then we don't have a chance of getting that future business from them and their referrals. Okay. And then change the status, obviously get that updated in MLS, make sure it's accurate, that if anything got negotiated during your closing, that's reflective. We don't want you getting fined in MLS. And then just sold or door knocking. And again, make sure if you're going to call, that you are calling people who want to be called. And then sending out, again, any sold postcards or letters to the neighbors. I like to show up on moving day if I can, right? For either a buyer or a seller. And I like to bring food and drinks because that seems to be the one thing people forget to do, is to hydrate and feed themselves when they're moving. And so, and I also like to follow up 5 to 7 days after closing because inevitably something happens, right? They spring a leak or the garage door stops working. And then I'm able to call the warranty company, get that process going for them. And it's just another layer of service. Okay. And if you get invited to anything, or if they want to have a housewarming party, why not offer to host it? We used to do this back in the day. And in fact, Nate even had housewarming open house signs that were directionals to get people to the properties. And so if you show up, you pay for the meat, you hang out, you will be the most popular person at the party, right? And what you do is you get the invitations. You know, back then we used to actually mail invitations. Nowadays, everything's online. But you still get an email and then put that person in your database. Right? And if they've invited 50 people, that's 50 more people you've just added to your contacts. Okay. All right. So we got 10 minutes. So I'm going to run through the lead generation for buyers. And so again, finding buyers face to face. Okay. Make it a goal. You know, make it a goal to get in front of someone every single week. And so we look at our network, our sphere of influence. Again, farming can generate buy leads, open houses. Okay. We've talked about that a lot. Open houses are really, to me, one of the most important things we do. Having any kind of ads. So, website, Craigslist, social media. We have Remax leads that come in, and of course, then just listed postcards that we might be sending out. I will tell you, I did that Facebook ad. I got a lot of leads from that. Got a lot of spam, but I got a lot of leads. And so, in fact, I got leads I got to follow up with. So I definitely think, and I even ran an old school newspaper ad. And for some reason, I didn't get the voicemail till today, but I got a call from the newspaper ad. Right? Like, talk about old school. So she's a buyer. I don't know. I might be referring it to somebody because I don't necessarily want to go to Wickenburg to work a buyer, but it worked, right? I got a lead from it. Okay. That's why I want to have that mastermind. So lead conversion. So we got, this is on page 19. So getting in the office, right? You have to bring them in the office and do a presentation with them. My buyer presentation is just going over the contract, hitting the most important things in the contract, getting all the addendums signed, buyer advisory, market advisory, agency, all those things out of the way. Okay. And if you spend that time, Scott, and go over that with them at the end, they're freaked out, right? They realize all the pitfalls and that buying a home isn't what they see on HDTV. Okay. So having them come into the office again, get your mind in the right spot, have the conversation, build the rapport, set the tone, help them uncover their needs and priorities, verify their motivation and their financial ability. Hopefully at this point, they've already talked to a lender. And in the conversion class, you're going to get the roles for a buyer as well, the role for you and them. And then, you know, getting a buyer representation agreement. We have a script for that you guys will get in coming classes. And then reviewing again the contract. Then we set for the next appointment, right? To have them come look at houses. Ideally, we meet, we go out a couple days later, and I'm setting the stage. I'm going to take you out and I'm going to show you the properties that fit your criteria the best, and you're going to make a decision to buy one of those. Right. And so we used to call and say, don't forget your checkbook, but you know, people don't carry checkbooks anymore. So we got to figure out how to do the earnest money conversation, right? And how it works for them and their, you know, what do they have as far as like I said, most people aren't doing checkbooks. I still have them, but so admin prep. So again, sending the thank you note, having your buyer file ready. You can go ahead and get all that stuff set up in SkySlope. Checking with the lender if it's not your preferred lender, where are they at as far as their price range, and asking those questions. I have a lender checklist. If you guys want it, send me an email. I'm happy to share that. Put them in the database, right? Talk about MLS and for sale by owners, new home construction. Go over all of that and why they shouldn't go stumbling into those places without you. And then we want to check their availability with the listings, and then showing the packages, right? So putting it together, if you're going to take them out and show them 5 houses, put the MLS sheets in order, highlight the important things, right? Because those things are like reading Greek. So highlight the most important things. And when you're out, you know, when they come back to the office to get ready to go, I personally want to put them in my car, go over the MLS sheet and talk to them about it, right? And then don't let them just be in control of which properties they see. I see a lot of agents getting lazy with our portals, and portals are great, but what if the photos suck? What if the photos don't represent that property and it's the perfect property for them, but the photos suck? Your buyer keeps passing it over because the photos are bad. And so we need to, that's where coming in, previewing and knowing the marketplace, knowing the new construction, so that as you're talking to them and they're telling you what they want, you already know, you're already on it. You're like, hey, let's go look at this new construction. From based on what you're telling me, this home fits your criteria. And buyers are liars, right? They don't mean to be. They don't mean to. It's just that what they think they want, and then once the reality of what they can get, it changes. And so our job is to be good stewards of listening to that, reading between the lines, so we can go out and find the right home for them. Okay, and then have them come back to the office, review the packages, answer any questions. Again, I want to put them in the car with me. A lot of conversation happens between two people about the homes. Plus, I can stay in control of converting, because we look at that house. How'd you like it? Could you see yourself living there? We get to house number 2, we get to house number 3. I only want them to have a top 3. So by the time we get to house 4, they're eliminating one of the 3 we've looked at. So then, because at the end of my tour, I want to take them back to their top properties. That's my closing. Now we go back to the office and write an offer. Okay. And if you rip up that, if that house doesn't work, tear it out of the sheets, have them crumple it up, and now it's discarded. Okay. So then going back to so our next thing is writing the offer. So call the listing agent, right? Talk to the listing agent. I got a typo here. Talk to the listing agent and find out, what is it that the seller needs? What does the agent need? Right. We did a lot of that in the crazy market. Was what is this? What does the listing agent need? You need a pizza? I'll bring you a pizza. So negotiate that, call, find out what the seller's plans are. Then once you send the offer, call to confirm. Because we don't know, technology happens, things don't go through, right? So don't just assume that they received your offer. And of course, getting earnest money delivered to title company as quickly as possible. Again, you represent the buyer, your responsibility to make sure they have copies of everything. The inspection, go to the inspection. I know this is not a dollar productive activity, but I'm not going to sit there for the full 3 hours. I want to go for the summary. And this is how, Scott, I stay in control of my transactions, because those things are scary. And if you're a buyer, you're getting 55 pages of basically telling you that you're buying the money pit, right? And so when I show up, I can ask questions and probe the inspector to go a little bit deeper with things that then can calm the nerves of the buyer, right? If you see someone who has a 57-page Benzer, it's because they didn't attend the inspection, they didn't explain the process to the client, and now the client's out of control. Okay. So I think it's really important to go to that. And then again, getting the insurance for your client, communicating throughout the process, reviewing the inspection report with them, and of course, negotiating any repairs. I always like to think about what are the most expensive things, are there safety issues, and then what is the inconvenience later of trying to fix that thing. Okay. Sometimes concessions are best. You got to be mindful if you're doing concessions. If you've already negotiated concessions, there's only so much that a buyer can get in concessions. You just got to be mindful of that if you're asking for repairs via money once you get through your inspection period. All right, next thing is the closing preparation. So scheduling the closing, again, we rely on title to do this a lot, communicating throughout the process, reviewing the settlement statements and the title policy for them. Things come up, right? So it's your job to read those. And again, we talked about attending the closing and the significance of that. And if it's, if you've got a buyer that this is their 10th home they're buying, they may or may not care that you attend, but at least offer to be there, okay? Then lastly, the post-closing activities. So again, survey, right? Ask for feedback, get the Google reviews. And then you can do a just sold postcard or door knocking around a property where you represented a buyer. Great time to meet your neighbor. Okay. And so that's, again, another opportunity to add people to your database and have more conversations. And then same thing. So mailing, and then the 5 to 7 day follow-up, and then 30-day follow-up. Offer to host the housewarming party, right? Be there, be present. If you get invited to anything that is someone's significant part of their life, whether that's a wedding, a funeral, a graduation, you got to go. You got to go, because that's where the magic's at. When people invite you to those things, that is, to me, like the highest compliment that we can get from someone, is to be invited to something like that's a milestone in their life. So any questions, comments? We got 2 minutes before I got to wrap up, because I got a coaching call behind you, but any ahas? So, go ahead, John. Mario, a couple of you came off mute, so go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I really enjoyed it. Makes me want to be an agent now.
Well, but all these things you could apply to being in what you're doing too, though.
Absolutely.
So yeah, cool. Love it. Mario.
Thank you for the information. Greatly appreciate it. So when we're invited to our clients' housewarming party, etc., we should pass out our business cards, obviously.
So I think if if you wanted to show up wearing a branded shirt that's subtle, I probably wouldn't wear my name bling badge. But if you wore something that's subtle that lets people know you're in real estate, I probably am not going to talk shop too much there, just because it's more of a social event. But if they want to get into that, yeah, I would be discreet. You're going to walk around being like, hey, here's my card, But if the conversation comes up, because then you can always follow up after the fact, right? Send a thank you note to them for coming. Here's my card. Let me know if I could be of any assistance to you. So I think it's going to be yes and no, right? So depending if it's appropriate at that time to hand out your card.
And depending how in depth you want to get into it, or you're
Absolutely.
invited to get into it. Thank you.
Absolutely. Yep. Very good. So in your guys' materials, all those things I went over, those are all part of your vital activities. Okay. And so record your stuff, pay attention to where you're spending your time. If it's not a hell yes, it's a no. Right. And prospecting every single day, it's got to be something that we do. And it doesn't have to be hard, right? Just like I got a stack of Christmas cards that came to me. That's part of my prospecting, is sending thank you notes to those people. Thank you so much, or texting them, I love this card, and just that follow up. So it's as simple as that. I think we want to make prospecting really difficult, and it doesn't have to be. Tomorrow, Alex is doing a Google My Business in person at Arrowhead North. Great class to come to. Obviously, Thursday, we got the lovely Motto Mortgage is providing lunch and doing a really relevant topic, how to get your buyers off the couch. So show up for that. Going to be some really great stuff. And then we've got KB Court training coming out in February. So rolling out the new product. If you guys need anything, reach out. Otherwise, have a fantastic day.
All right. Thanks, Sarah.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
You're welcome. My pleasure. Take care, you guys. See you next
Bye.
week. Bye-bye.
Bye.